About a year ago, I installed security cameras around my house for the first time. Nothing dramatic had happened in my neighborhood, but there had been a few break-ins reported about 20 minutes away. My wife travels a lot for work, and sometimes I'm home alone for days at a time. Cameras just felt like a smart precaution. The system I bought was pretty simple. 4 outdoor cameras, 1 doorbell camera, and 2 indoor cameras. One pointed toward the front door, and the other covered the living room and the hallway that led toward the bedrooms. At first, I barely paid attention to them. The app on my phone would send notifications anytime it detected motion, but most of the alerts were boring things: delivery drivers, stray cats, or tree branches moving in the wind. For months, nothing unusual ever showed up. Then one weekend, my wife and I left town to visit her parents. They lived about 3 hours away, so we planned to stay there for 2 nights. Before leaving, I did the usual routine: locked the doors, turned off the lights, set the alarm system, and checked the camera app one last time before getting on the highway. Everything looked normal. The first day of the trip went by without any issues. We spent most of the day with her family, and I honestly forgot about the cameras entirely. It wasn't until late that night, around 11:40 p.m., that my phone buzzed with a notification. Motion detected, living room camera. I remember frowning at the screen. Motion alerts inside the house were rare since no one was supposed to be there. At first, I assumed it was probably just a glitch or maybe a reflection from headlights passing by outside. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the app and watched the clip. The camera showed the living room exactly how we had left it. The couch, the coffee table, the TV across the room. Everything looked still and quiet. Then, about 3 seconds into the clip, something moved at the edge of the frame. A shadow. It was subtle enough that I almost missed it. Something dark shifted near the hallway entrance. My first thought was that maybe the camera had picked up a lighting change or some kind of bug flying near the lens. Then I watched the clip again. And this time, I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. The shadow didn't move like a bug. It moved like a person stepping backward out of view. I replayed the clip 4 or 5 times. Each time, the same thing happened. For a brief moment, it looked like someone was standing in the hallway just out of sight, and then slowly stepping back. I sat there staring at my phone. The house alarm hadn't gone off. None of the door sensors had been triggered. If someone was inside my house, how had they gotten in? I switched to the live camera feed. The living room looked empty. Completely still. I checked the other cameras one by one. Front door camera, nothing. Backyard camera, empty. Driveway camera, no cars. Everything looked normal. Eventually, I convinced myself the clip had to be some weird camera glitch. Technology does strange things sometimes, especially with motion detection. I closed the app and went back to talking with my wife's parents. The uneasy feeling never really went away. The next morning, around 7:15 a.m., I got another notification. Motion detected, living room camera. This time, I opened the clip immediately. The video started with the same view of the living room. Then, slowly, someone walked into frame from the hallway. I remember the exact moment my brain registered what I was seeing. There was a man inside my house. He was tall and thin, wearing dark clothes and what looked like a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He walked into the living room slowly, almost cautiously, like he was listening for something. For a few seconds, he just stood there. Then he looked directly at the camera. My entire body went cold. The man didn't look surprised. He didn't panic. Instead, he stared straight into the lens for several seconds, completely still. Then he walked out of frame. The clip ended. I immediately checked the live feed again. The living room was empty. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. I showed the video to my wife. At first she thought it was a joke. Then she saw the man staring at the camera. We called the police right away. The dispatcher told us officers would check the house, but since we were hours away, there wasn't much else we could do except wait. Those 40 minutes felt like the longest stretch of time in my life. Eventually, the police called me back. 2 officers had arrived at the house and searched the entire property. They didn't find anyone. No broken windows. No forced entry. Nothing stolen. Everything inside the house looked exactly how we had left it. The officers asked if anyone else had a key to the house. I told them no. They asked if maybe a family member or friend had stopped by. Again, no. The whole situation made no sense. The officers said sometimes people break into houses just to look around or spend time inside when the owners aren't home. They recommended we change our locks just to be safe. That night, I barely slept. Next morning, before we drove back home, I checked the camera app again. That's when I saw something that made the situation even worse. There were 3 new motion alerts. All from the living room camera. And all recorded around 3 a.m. I opened the first clip. The man was back. This time, he was sitting on the couch. Just sitting there. Completely still. The room was dark except for the faint glow of the TV screen. I hadn't turned the TV on before leaving town. But in the video, it was clearly on. The man sat there facing the television, his head slightly tilted forward. The camera recorded him sitting there for almost 30 seconds. Then he slowly stood up and walked toward the hallway. The next clip showed him again. This time he was standing in the middle of the living room, looking directly at the camera. Something about this clip was different. He wasn't just looking at the camera. He was smiling. A slow, unnatural smile that spread across his face as he stared into the lens. Then he raised one hand and waved. The final clip was the one that made my stomach drop. The man walked up very close to the camera. So close that his face filled most of the frame. And he spoke. The camera didn't record audio clearly, but you could still see his lips moving. He said something slowly. Then he leaned closer and whispered something directly toward the camera. The video ended. I remember sitting in the car, staring at my phone in complete silence. My wife kept asking what was wrong. For a few seconds, I couldn't even speak. Eventually, I zoomed in on the frame where his face was closest to the camera. The baseball cap shadowed most of his features. His eyes were clearly visible. And I realized something that made my chest tighten. I had seen those eyes before. Not in person, but on the camera app. Weeks earlier. Late one night, I had gotten a random motion notification from the front porch camera. When I opened the clip, it showed a man standing near the edge of the driveway. He wasn't approaching the house. He was just standing there, looking toward the front door. At the time, I assumed it was just someone passing by on the sidewalk. Now I wasn't so sure. When we finally got home that afternoon, the first thing I did was walk through every room in the house. Everything looked normal. The feeling of being watched wouldn't go away. Police came back to take another report and collect the camera footage. They asked if I wanted them to dust for fingerprints, but honestly, I wasn't sure what they'd even find. Before they left, one of the officers asked a question that stuck with me. "Have you checked your attic?" I told him we never used it. He nodded slowly. Sometimes people hide in places homeowners forget about. That sentence made my skin crawl. After the officers left, I grabbed a flashlight and a step ladder. The attic entrance was in the hallway ceiling. I stood there for a long moment, staring up at the small square panel. Then I pushed it open. A rush of stale, dusty air drifted down. I shined the flashlight into the darkness. At first, I didn't see anything unusual. Just insulation and wooden beams. Then the light landed on something near the far corner. A blanket. Beside it, several empty food wrappers. Someone had been living in my attic. For how long, I still don't know. There was one detail I'll never forget. Sitting on the insulation near the blanket was a small pile of printed photos. Photos taken from my security cameras. Every single one showed me inside my own house.
Subscribe to my channel.